Senator Rand Paul, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Mark, or good evening, actually. Thanks for having me.
You're on the West Coast, aren't you? That's why you've lost track of the time. First of all, I guess you saw Bobby Jindal dropped out. You saw that. What are your thoughts about that?
You know, I think the field's going to continue to narrow, and we think we're in a good position to be a big factor, and hopefully we're going to be the sleeper that rises at just the right time.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk to you about your proposed legislation, which is based on legislation you brought up over 2 years ago, in securing, about security relating to immigration and refugees. Go ahead, you explain it.
You know, I became very concerned in a very personal way because we admitted about 70,000 Iraqis to this country, and 2 of them showed up in my hometown, Bowling Green, Kentucky, and decided they would buy Stinger missiles. And we caught them, fortunately, but as we were investigating them, we found out one of them's fingerprints was on a bomb fragment, and the vetting process just didn't work. And so I became concerned that we were admitting people to a refugee status that might harm us, and I just didn't think we were capable, really, of knowing who was visiting the country. Then we had the Boston bombing, and the 2 kids that, hurt so many people and killed so many people, they were also here on a refugee status also. So when the immigration bill came forward, I said, you know what, we've got to try to stop this. So I put special language in my amendment, trust but verify, that said that students coming to visit us and refugees would have to go through some special scrutiny if they were coming from certain countries. It's about 30 of them that have significant radical jihadist movements. And I put it forward, and I thought it would have a good chance. I talked to Marco Rubio about it, and I thought, well, good. You know, he's supposed to be a conservative. Maybe he'll listen to me. But what I didn't realize is that Marco Rubio and Chuck Schumer had a secret deal, and their deal was no amendments from conservatives.
All right, let's stop here. You're talking about the Gang of 8. You proposed this amendment, and they killed it.
Yeah, and they did it in a concerted fashion. All of the Gang of 8 voted in lockstep against any amendments proposed by conservatives. And so I put this forward. I think it's a national security amendment. I was trying to protect our country from people who would come in here without sufficient scrutiny and attack us. And this is a big deal because I'm having the same discussion with Marco now. How do we best defend the country? But if you're not willing to have adequate screening for those who would come to our country, including refugees, some significant prominent examples of whom have tried to attack us and have attacked us, I just don't think that's a conservative notion, and I still don't understand why, Marco's allegiance was more towards Chuck Schumer than it was towards conservatives.
So now your new bill would do what?
We would stop refugee immigration. We would also stop any kind of immigration visitation or study for students from certain countries until we have 100% entry and exit program. What I mean by that is that we would know everybody that comes in, how long they're staying, and when they're leaving, and they would leave. Right now we have 11 million people who came into our country. 40% of them overstayed the visa. So we have a program where we don't know where 40% of 11 million people are. My concern is that if you put students and visitors from the Middle East and you use the same statistic of 40% overstaying their visas, that's a big problem. We're talking about thousands of people that we need to know where they are and why they're breaking the law. And until we know that, I think it's foolish to accept more. Nearly 1 million students come to our country every year. About 150,000 students come just from the Middle East. Very careful.
Oh, no, we're not losing you, are we? Did we lose him? Because I'm really interested in what we're going to get him back, folks, because this is very, very, very important. And it gives me hope to hear Rand Paul talking about this the way he is. So we're going to get him back. I've never understood why they didn't allow any amendments on that Gang of 8 massive immigration bill. Rand Paul, are you still there now?
I am. I've just kind of got a raspy voice tonight.
No, you were cut off. We've lost the good part. So you were saying, look, your position is we need to know who's coming here. We need to know where they're going. You're absolutely right with these visas. People come here legally, and then they don't leave, so then they're here illegally. And by the way, I favor a wall, but a wall doesn't stop them because they came legally through the front door.
Yeah, and that's what we need to limit until we can figure out how to know who's safe and who's unsafe. And I think with such prominent examples of people posing as refugees, the Boston bombers came here as refugees, the Iraqi refugees that came to my town and tried to buy Stinger missiles, that we just have to stop it for a while, and we have to figure out who's here, who's not here, who's a threat, who's not a threat. The one thing my bill does also, which fixes a problem that nobody else has proposed, is if you're a French citizen and you want to come here tomorrow, you don't have to have any visa. They're a visa waiver country. And so my bill would say they have to wait 30 days or join global entry. Global entry is like a trusted traveler program. You have to do a background check, and I think it does help. It may not be perfect, but it helps. My fear is that in France, the attackers are going to turn out to be French citizens. Right now, a French citizen can hop on a plane and come to our country. And I don't think there's sufficient scrutiny for French citizens. And I don't have anything against France. I feel for France and what they're going through. But we have to have some safety procedures before people come here. So what I'm proposing is either a 30-day wait or you join global entry, which means...
Let me just say, this is very, very important, because what you're saying is we have these relationships with allies, major allies, been allies for decades, countries in Europe, but their standards are not our standards. We don't know who they've allowed in there, and they just come into our country on a say-so. And you're saying, look, we should at least slow that down so we can take a look at it. I think that's an important idea.
Yeah, and the thing is we could still have, expedited travel. If you're a businessman or a woman and you come to America frequently and you have legitimate trade, and once we've done a check, you should be able to come pretty easily. But if you're a 25-year-old guy living in France and you came over from North Africa recently and you're a French citizen and you're not a business traveler, I think we need to wait 30 days and figure out who you are before you come here.
Yeah, I don't really see what's wrong with that. And by the way, your original proposal a couple of years ago wasn't dissimilar from this, and it was rejected by John McCain. It was rejected by Lindsey Graham. It was rejected by Marco Rubio. Who was the other Republican on there? I don't remember.
There were 8 total, and all
maybe
of them
just 3 Republicans. Yeah.
Yeah, but they all rejected it, and the bottom line is they rejected something that's a very conservative notion, and also a notion of something that was put forward to protect the country, because I particularly had in mind the idea that people were posing as refugees even back then. And I guess that's what, we're going to have a debate about, because the question is whether or not Marco Rubio truly is a conservative, or whether or not his proposal for open immigration would protect the country.
All right, we'll have to try and get him back and ask him some of these questions. But anyway, Senator Paul, welcome back, and be safe out there.
Thanks, Mark.